She had no doubt now that Brent loved her far more than any man ever did, than any man ever could. God also revealed to Gail as she prayed and read her Bible in that December 1999 that if she did not end her marriage, that the Jesuits would kill her and or her son within a few years. She sensed the Jesuit noose around her neck tightening and tightening like a boa constrictor, and she knew that the Vatican would use her husband as the Vatican agent to promote her death. God told her to get out of the marriage now and not to delay any more ending her marriage. She got a distinct impression from God that it was His will for her to now leave the marriage, and that if she failed to have the courage to end the marriage now, that she would be dead within a few years. God said to Gail distinctly in that December 1999 that she must end her marriage and do it now if she wanted to stay alive. And as she viewed her life around her, she perceived her life in grave danger and knew that God had spoken to her about His will, and that indeed, if she did not end her marriage immediately, that she would be dead within a few years. So, despite the $40,000 divorce, and despite the tidal wave of pressure the Jesuits mounted against Gail, as the divorce case went forward, she went forward with the divorce. Now that Gail knew who her enemy was, she was furious, because they almost allowed her to devastate a man who loved her from the depths of his heart, and furious because they had ruined her health and used her husband to try to destroy her. Lorie McBride would not easily give up her publicity boyfriend or her undeserved reputation as the Hollywood glamour queen, and she had the backing of a Roman Catholic empire with wealth far more vast than Brent or Gail would ever have to support her in her attempts to control and take over Brent Spiner. But you can live with someone in their house or at their workplace day by day and still not know them. These, like Loree, are obsessed with illusions, with impressions, with appearances, with falsehoods, with lies, with delusions. Such was Loree with Brent Spiner. She didn't love him, but only wanted to use him to promote Jesuit agendas. She never gazed into his eyes to explore his manliness, courage, or honor. She could care less about this. These traits got in the way. They were useless drivel. Brent, not a romantic interest to her, was a conquest for the Jesuit order, a star she could shine with. Her relationship with Brent was a career, not a matter of falling in love, but a matter of serving the interests of the Jesuit order, to ensure that Gail Chana would never have a famous man for a lover or a husband. Ever aware of impressions, she'd use her knowledge of press and public relations to manipulate and extort herself into girlfriend status with the nice and easy Hollywood star. With Brent as her perfect sucker, she knew he'd do anything to protect Gail. Yes, he'd do anything, even take Loree as a girlfriend, if she set up conditions so he'd have to do this to protect the woman he adored. So she set him up and raped him, and shoved herself into his life and into his relationship with Gail. She got between Gail and Brent to try to break them up, to have Brent all to herself, to ensure that Brent Spiner would never marry the Howard Hughes Catherine the Great woman, and thus destroy the goals of the Jesuit order. She knew the complications in their relationship. She knew Brent was helplessly in love with Gail, and discerned that she could manipulate these complications to her advantage. She could take care of his infatuation with Gail, because she knew enough about Christians to know how to make him nauseating to Gail. Once she got her title the girlfriend of the famous Brent Spiner, she had the clout she needed to win her war against the nobody housewife with stars in her eyes about her hero that Brent wouldn't give up on. But to remove Gail from his heart became a tougher obstacle than she anticipated. No ordinary housewife, shrewd Brent discovered rare traits in Gail that he could find in no other women. Lorie began to realize that her sparkling good looks and cruelty towards Brent and others paled in comparison to Gail's penetrations into Brent's heart and soul, and her extraordinary courage, devotion, and passion in the way she loved him. Gail's soul and spirit left such imprints in Brent's heart that Lorie could do nothing to remove Gail from his heart, so that he idolized Gail day in and day out, no matter what Lorie did. So that one day Lorie called Gail up like an earthquake and screamed with venom, "Hey, bitch, what the fuck are you doing to my boyfriend?" She appeared with him in public as much as possible to irritate Gail, but Gail ignored her to her irritation, and she never could get in the way enough to cause problems. Until Lorie printed a lying Houston Chronicle snippet that claimed that Brent's own mother announced how Brent gave Lorie a birthday bash at Spago's in L.A. on June 26, 1996. Lorie stole Brent's credit cards to give herself that birthday bash as the girlfriend of Brent Spiner. Brent was not there because he was not invited. Besides, who'd believe a Hollywood star could be so noble in love that he'd adore a poor nobody homemaker? What a perfect scenario. A genuinely nice Hollywood star who adores an honorable but naive woman who won't go to bed with him, but talks or writes love nonsense to him all day. So as Lorie observed Brent Spiner, she plotted and schemed a way to weasel this man into a marriage with her, to trap him into a relationship with her that would ensure Brent Spiner would never marry Gail Chana. She used her good looks and public relations savvy to the fullest to accomplish her objective. A rape would be the perfect way to gain entrance, because with her good looks, who'd believe Brent if he claimed that she raped him? Brent would be so devastated by the rape, which he was, that he'd lose his head, so that he wouldn't lose the love of his life. Lorie would take full advantage of his emotional devastation to trap him into a relationship with her. This evil woman, fully aware of stereotypical public perceptions, used this knowledge to the fullest advantage. Yes, she didn't have stars in her eyes about Brent, because her only feelings and goals for him were to enjoy and use him for the Jesuit order, not to nurture or support him as a soulmate or a husband. While Brent's heart withered in despair in September 1992, when Lorie somehow managed to obtain his sperm as evidence of his sex with her, as he contemplated that he could lose the woman of his dreams forever, Lorie bided her time to go in and make the attack in order to promote her Hollywood romance career, to ensure her name blazed besides his in all press releases. She planned associations with him as much as possible to create the impression that he could find her attractive, and that he had an authentic boyfriend-girlfriend relationship with her that included regular sex. The Jesuits used Paramount to give Lorie the legal and financial backing she needed so they could use her to blackmail Brent's love for Gail. When Brent eventually signed his contract with Paramount to allow his extortioner to enter his life, Lorie McBride floated in dreamland, her brilliant Hollywood romantic career as the destroyer of the love between Brent and Gail had begun. The Jesuits never expected Gail to figure out as much as she did, but God told her in the wee hours of that December 1999 that her enemy was the Roman Catholic Church. By 1998, after Franco rejected and exposed her, Lorie felt threatened that she would be exposed as the fraud and rapist she really was, and she realized that she had failed utterly to stop Brent's love for Gail, and that he loved her more than ever, and that the Jesuits would kill her for this. She had failed in her assignment, an assignment that cost the Jesuits and Brent millions of dollars. Even worse because of Franco. Her reputation as a nice girl was about to be demolished. Her Hollywood romantic career as the girlfriend of Brent Spiner was ruined. All she cared about had burned up in a vast bonfire. Already, all the Hollywood men labeled her as the dirty whore who tried to seduce Franco Nero while she paraded as Brent's girlfriend. Her reputation as a cute Hollywood blonde, which was her obsession, was ruined because of Franco Nero. Even her 2 dogs could not overcome the damage. All of Hollywood knew she was a cold-hearted, calculating bitch who only owned dogs to create the false impression she was an animal lover and therefore had to be nice and cute and friendly and never one to use drug rape to extort Brent Spiner into a boyfriend-girlfriend relationship with her. How could she convince the world that Brent had willing and knowing sex with her when it's obvious such a nice guy would never want a woman as vulgar and vile as her, who tried to rape Franco Nero like she raped Brent Spiner? Is it any wonder that Brent stared at her like she was a viper in all the Germany photos of her taken in December 1996, the time when she tried to do a repeat performance on Franco Nero, like she did to Brent in September 1992, when her actions caused Brent's heart to wither in despair? The Jesuits wasted no time to doctor up her internet photos taken of her London visit to Franco in September 1996 to cover up more of her breasts and bring the V-neck on her seductive dress up higher, create a more angelic look to her face, minimize her purple and seductive lipstick, and make her look less like the murdering whore she was and is. She was dressed to seduce, but instead repulsed the Italian film star who had the gall to expose her rape attempt to Brent Spiner, who stared at her like she was a viper in the photos taken of Brent and Lorie together in Germany in December 1996. These photos show that Brent hated being with her and hated the game Paramount extorted him into, that he'd rather have just about any woman in the world for a girlfriend or constant companion than this cruel and lying viper. Even if Franco rejected her, he didn't have to tell Brent and the whole world about it. Her expression in the Germany photos indicated she wanted to kill Franco Nero and Gail for how they ruined her life. Lorie McBride, or her clone, would now impregnate herself with Brent's sperm in September 2001, after the Jesuit 9/11/2001 plot to terrify Gail with the World Trade Center attacks had failed, causing Gail to transfer her desire to marry Brent to Russian President Vladimir Putin. So the Jesuits, realizing Gail had become enamored with Vladimir and had somewhat put Brent aside, would use semen they had stolen from their September 1992 rape of Brent to impregnate Lorie McBride through artificial insemination. The Jesuits, who created clones of just about everyone on Earth, could easily steal any man's sperm without his knowledge or consent and use it to destroy any relationship, like the relationship between Brent and Gail that threatened Jesuit goals. Before 9/11/2001, when Gail first realized that Lorie McBride was a Vatican agent, she wailed on her wiretapped phone to Brent, "Oh, Brent, I'm so sorry that I kicked you out of my heart as a lover. I will dream about making love to you again. In fact, because you have put up with so much for me to protect me, I will marry you." Gail sniffled and cried for some minutes, then got herself together. "I will lay down an ultimatum with my husband and tell him that if he won't pay for my naturopathic medicine, that I will divorce him. He's so stingy, I know he will not help, and then I will have scriptural grounds for divorce. Desertion, because he refuses to pay for the medical care that will keep me alive." Gail forgave Brent Spiner in December 1999 and fell in love with him again, all because of a thought that came to her mind as a still, small voice. It was God. God spoke to her at 2 in the morning while she lay on her bed in her Seattle apartment.